Hey guys, how are you doing? Thanks for hanging out with me on this Monday. I've got a topic that I think you guys would find interesting. Let's talk about professionalism, or more exactly, what is a professional in indie comics? So a couple approaches to what people have been debating this for a number of years now, since the influx of a lot of people who have worked in mainstream comics and now are working in self-publishing their own comics because of uh, the growing collapse of the traditional market for comics. And so there's been a lot of shifting and debatable definitions about what that means. Here's a couple of things that I've seen these definitions used. I think they're used polemically. I don't think they're used terribly logically. So here's a couple of them. A professional is someone whose names you're who's getting paid, who makes a living doing those comics. That's their day job. I think that's not the best definition of what a professional is. Here's why. A lot of those names you see on local comic shop shelves, you think of Image, for instance. You think of a lot of these companies that have they have contracts where you get paid above a certain amount sold, and a lot of these books, my understanding is more than half of Image comics don't sell above the minimum required to pay out to the creative staff. Or they're not even staff. The creative, freelance contributors, I guess. So a lot of these people have day jobs. Which this is kind of overlaps, but it's not perfect. A lot of these people, that maybe they do get payouts, they're doing decently, but they have jobs outside of comics, and you can see their names on those bookshelves at local comic shops, even at Barnes & Noble. And increasingly this is the case as the industry continues to be not terribly healthy. So that's more of a critique of the industry. Clearly you can be I think you can be a professional and not get paid for your work and not do it for a living. And I just think that's more a consistent application. I don't think you stop being a professional just because the industry is that terrible. It just means that you're a professional inside of a terrible industry. So those are a couple aspects, right? Whether or not you do it for a living, whether or not you get paid for your work. Those are ways you discuss the industry. It's not the way you divide professional versus unprofessional. So so when it comes to indie, so this is kind of like a better way to get at it. Broadly speaking, you guys hear me talk about this a lot. Broadly speaking, kind of the term for what a professional is within an indie scene is kind of tricky, because indie for outside of the U.S. in comics, and then indie for any other industry inside or outside the comics industry. Indie means self-published, basically, or very locally published. So professional in this sense, typically you start talking about your professional musician when someone invests money in you to make money off of you as your publisher, right? I know just like in the indie music scene, there's always kind of a gray area depending on how large your record deal is. If it's large, they don't think of you as indie anymore. If it's small, there's you could be kind of purist about it and say you have to be producing and distributing your own records to be truly indie. And I think the mainstream view is that you're probably still indie if you're still hustling, and the publisher able to do a lot for you. You're kind of fronting most of your costs, and you're doing most of the hustling and the marketing. That's a fuzzy gray area, but I think it's a better way of discussing these sort of topics. But does it apply to indie comics? So when I say indie comics, I'm using the normative use of the term indie, where I'm not talking about people who work professionally at any other company than the big two. I'm talking about indie in the terms of either independently published or hustling on a very low level with kind of like a lower visibility company shepherding them in some respect and investing lower levels of funds, but it's a company that doesn't have a huge distribution deal and is not primarily the main vehicle of your success. It's you as the creator having the main vehicle of success. I think of that as indie. Are you a professional still in that respect? I think if you match yourself with a market and you deliver consistently, and you've got good customer service, and you're not surprised at this point that I'm saying these things. If you act like a professional, in the sense of that, all the senses that normally means, you have a professional attitude and you're treating it professionally, what you do, your craft professionally. And if you're finding people who like your product and they invest in it, then I think you can be, even though I think this is more debatable, you can be a professional and an indie comic producer, a self-published comic creator, or a small press published comic creator. But it's that's up for debate. It's not used to work for the big two or something like that. It's not, though that usually means that. It's not coterminous with that. And it doesn't mean that you are or are not on the bookshelves, at local comic shops. It doesn't mean that you're paid for your work or do it for a living. It just means that you act professionally as an individual in the business ecosystem, and that you actually have titles to your name, even if those are not on bookshelves. They just have to be in people's hands. And once you hit that market, once you've been fulfilling campaigns, there's no reason to not call you professional, I think, unless there's some sort of additional, I would say, artificial boundaries that you feel need to be expressed in some way, and you want to say professional versus, I don't know, avocational, yeah. But so that's debatable too. But frankly, I mean, that's just the way I think the most consistent way to approach it. I got buddies who, they might go play violin for a wedding or something, and I would think if they have a website, if they can book, with a wedding planner, and they can get paid for that, they can do their job, and they can go home with a check. That's as professional as someone who works, is on payroll at the Boston Pops or something. That's kind of I don't know. Professional isn't meant to stratify. I think it's not meant to say that there's an elite group and then there's some sort of underclass in the in the market. And if you do mean it that way, if people do mean it that way, I don't know what the benefit of that is doing, except to I don't know, maybe you don't like one group or the other. Maybe you're in the elite and you don't like the people beneath you, the people you perceive as beneath you, and you want to call them unprofessional. Or maybe you are in that underclass and you think of professional as some sort of a negative attribute that you want to ascribe to them, because I've seen a lot of that. Frankly, you're all professionals. and I hope all of you act like professionals. So you can be a professional and not act professionally. We've all seen that. I've seen a lot of, you know, almost every professional since 2018 that I've seen in this crowdfunding space has shown their ass at some point. It's pretty horrific. So yeah, that's all. That's just some food for thought. So let me know your thoughts. Yeah, you can be a professional, be self-publishing. Your books are on no shelves. You've never made any money at it. It's not your day job, but you deliver within expectations, or you meet or exceed customer expectations. There is money exchanged to get that happening, and you know, people have you on their bookshelves, their private bookshelves, alongside anything else. That seems to me to be all you need to call yourself a professional. That seems the most logical way to go about it. So that's my thoughts. You know, I'm trying to be professional. That doesn't mean I'm trying to get a book deal. It doesn't mean I'm trying. It'd be nice to make a profit, but that's not the guarantor I'm going at. And yeah, just the variables within my control, which is acting like a professional, is what I have to work with. So let me know your thoughts. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.